All right. Well, I think it's time to get going here. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy lives to spend an hour or two with us here tonight. And as I'm kind of warming up to these meetings, I'm kind of learning kind of how to do these. I'm expanding the teaching section, of the meeting. I hope that meets everybody's approval. And so tonight we're going to actually cover two topics before we get into the question and answer session. We didn't get a lot of questions emailed to us, so we're hoping that you'll fill the chat with more questions. And we've got a new technique for displaying the questions because I'm an old guy. I get confused when the question is more than three sentences long. I can't remember what the first sentence was. So now we're writing it down so we can all kind of read the question together. And I'm going to get my PowerPoint here working. Had a little issues earlier, so I hope I can make this work. Okay, let's start with this one. And where'd it go? No, where'd it go? Bear with me. Um, so can you see the PowerPoint now?
Mhm.
Yeah? Everybody see it? Good. All right. Well, I guess we got it working then. Okay. So, and then you'll admit them while I'm talking, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, good. All righty. So yeah, welcome to Doc Rob Live. Tonight's lucky number 13. We've been doing these quite a while now. And that needs to go a little lower. So tonight we're going to talk about essential oils. I attended a webinar given by a veterinarian for veterinarians on essential oils, and I made some screenshots, of the slides. I thought they were pretty good, and I had in mind presenting them tonight here. I mean, essential oils are widely available out there. We do carry an essential oil from doTERRA, from the doTERRA products, and it's one of our affiliates or our partners, where having the affiliates and the partners on this website allows me to offer more products without having to spend the money to put them into inventory. And when you order these products through our website, you get a discount, we get a little kickback, so it makes it worthwhile for everybody. And so I've vetted these companies. I think these are top-notch companies, and so I suggest you check them out. There are other companies out there. There's only so many I can sign up as partners on our website. So, but anyway, we'll talk about the essential oils. We'll talk about some specific oils. We'll talk about how to dose them and apply them. Talk about some safety issues. Essential oils are generally safe when used properly. They can be very, very powerful because of their very strong extracts of the oils of plants, herbs in particular. Then I want to talk about food and diet and home prepared meals just a little bit, but mostly talk about feeding strategies. And then at the end, we're going to review some of the partners that we have for some of the diets and some of the other things. We'll go over a few of the new products and our bundles, and we'll kind of get all that marketing out of the way and let you know what's available, what I've spent so much time trying to provide you with the best possible quality and wide variety and good selection. And then we'll dig down into the questions. And if you have questions about what I'm talking about for the webinar tonight, please please ask them. What you can certainly raise your hand and ask them and interrupt me while I'm in the middle of it. I think it's better if you have a question for us to address it when you have it. So that being said, we're going to show you the same basic housekeeping slides as we show each time. Today's topic, essential oils, diet suggestions, feeding strategies, and more about our partners. And like I mentioned, we do have questions from email, and we will use those, but we don't have a lot, actually. We've only got about three or four. So please, give send us more questions through the chat, and and you can put that into the Zoom meeting function, the chat, and we'll answer all your questions no matter how long it takes. And if there's common threads to questions, then obviously those questions would have the highest priority. And yes, and do please raise your hand if you have any questions and you're not understanding what I'm saying. My goal here is not to show you how smart I am. My goal here is to share information with you that you can use to improve the health of your critters. So, and then I need to give you a disclaimer that I'm not really allowed to give medical advice online without at all, but especially because we don't have a doctor-patient relationship. And because I'm inundated with so many questions and so many emails, um, that it's hard for me to do person to person, one-on-one telephone types of consultations. But what I do provide is I do read your emails and I do try to give you the very best answers that I can, as well as possible suggestions of supplements to select that might be helpful. I'll oftentimes tell you that I think that you should consider not rejecting the conventional approaches because I think there is value to many conventional approaches when done properly. And I may suggest that you go see a certain type of vet or a vet, or you may, you know, get certain kinds of testing done, things like that. So that's my role in helping you with your pet's health. And we're offering these every month. This is our 13th now, so we've been doing them for over a year, about the same time, fourth Thursday of each month, usually. We record them live, and we will share with you the live recordings. Many of you reach out afterwards about that, and so don't worry. We will be sending them to you, but we'll also be sending you a copy of the slides so that you actually can go back and review the material, and maybe even review the material while you're going back over the video. If there's material and things I've discussed that you think are particularly important for you to learn and figure out for your pet. Um, I've written a book, and it's a good reference. Everything I'm talking about is also in the book. There's a mushroom for that, and we've mentioned that if you do order the book through Amazon, and I lowered the price after a year, it's now just $25. And send us the receipt. We'll give you some discount coupons for 2 times for 25% off of anything on our site. And let us know if you have suggestions about more things that we can do and how we can better serve your needs for information to help improve your pet's health. There you go. So today's topic, we're going to talk about what are essential oils and how can I use them for my pet? And we'll take a considerable amount of time to go over that. And then we're going to talk about food and why is it so important to feed healthy food? What is healthy food for pets? And how do you incorporate feeding a better diet to my pet in a way that doesn't totally disrupt your life? I mean, pets are really, really important. But we need to put everything in its context. And so I've got some ways, because I know when I was in practice and I would teach people how to do homemade diets, I learned over time that oftentimes you get started with a recipe, you get started with a diet, but over time you get what we call recipe drift. Pet parents will substitute ingredients which may not necessarily keep it with the same nutritional value. They may change the formula entirely. And so I found that the best way to make sure that there is consistency in the type of food and the quality of food that's being fed is to keep it as simple as possible. Some of these diets that I read that people put out there, and they're good diets, and these are good, responsible veterinarians and holistic health practitioners that are doing them, but they're so complicated. They're so perfectionist oriented. That's just not my style. Maybe it is your style, in which case I commend you and you can go ahead and follow those very detailed diets. But if you're looking for a more compromised approach to feeding your pet healthy, but not totally destroying, your your schedules and your life and everything else and your budget, I've got some ideas here that I'd like to share with you tonight. Um, And of course, our partners for diets and supplements may actually help you achieve that in a simpler way. And I'll be showing you how we can compromise, find a number of ways to compromise that. So, when we're talking about using essential oils, well, what are essential oils? Essential oils are plants that have been steam distilled. It's a type of distillery in which you're using steam. And what the steam does is it makes the oils kind of sweat out of the plant. And then we collect those oils. And so the essential oils are the terpenes, or the hydrocarbon molecules that give plants their taste and their aroma, but also in part give plants their biological activity. And these terpenes, when they're very concentrated and extracted from the plant, can be very strong. They're very aromatic, but they can also be very, very strong. And so the ways that we can administer them to animals include aromatically, which could be using a diffuser. You could mix the essential oil in a little spray bottle with some water, and shake it up really well because the oils don't really mix with water, but they will spray out nicely. You can spray it into the air. You can do direct inhalation, but you have to be careful about the strength of the essential oil and how they're inhaling it. For instance, one of the tricks that I would do in practice for dogs that would come into my exam room to try to calm them down, because it really was important for me to have a very relaxing and calming environment in my office, especially if I'm doing acupuncture on these dogs and they have to sit still for 20 minutes or 40 minutes with all of these needles in them all over. You don't want a hyper excited, reactive dog. And so what I found was if I would take essential oil of peppermint, and any essential oil of peppermint works. If you have some at home, try this. And I would put some in my palm, a couple drops in my palm, and then I would rub that into the front pads of a dog. And I never found it to be caustic, although we are concerned about essential oils being used topically, being a bit caustic, which is why we say diluting them is best. But in this case, I didn't find that to be true. And the warmth of the pad causes the essential oil to vaporize. And so the dog would be smelling this peppermint oil, which is very, very calming. It's actually as calming as lavender and maybe even a little bit more calming for dogs. I was really surprised to find that because I never really had thought about peppermint oil as being that calming. And so the front paws are warm and they cause the peppermint oil to be inhaled, and then the dog relaxes. So if you have peppermint oil, try that at home. I think you'll find it to be a pretty cool thing. And it's something that you can do with your dog before you take them on a trip if they're a little bit nervous about traveling, or to the groomer or to the vet, or even to the dog park, whatever it is that it can. It's a very safe and easy way to chill your pet just a little bit. So, I mean, you can also put it on cloth or bedding, or even put some drops on a cotton ball and just, kind of waft it around so they can inhale it. And certainly you can put it, I've seen humidifiers that have little pads on them, and you can put them on a fan. You can maybe, put some drops on a towel that's wet and then put it in front of a fan, and that will blow that out. And then you can also do it by direct application. We recommend generally to dilute it, and I've got a dilution chart in the next slide, which is one reason why you'll want to get a copy of these slides, after we're all done and we give you a recording. And I didn't really understand how just rubbing it on top of the hair worked until I learned that the oils really are they travel. They don't just sit on the top of the hair. They kind of travel down to the hair follicle. And the hair follicle has a lot of blood supply to it. So what happens is the essential oils go down into the hair follicle, and that way they get absorbed into the body. They can also get absorbed, through the skin itself. Some people will massage it into the tip of the ears, or they'll mix essential oils with some massage oil that they might be massaging the pet with. Although using too many oils on hair can kind of foul the hair, so you have to be careful about that. If you know acupuncture, acupressure, you could use the essential oils on acupuncture points. You could add the essential oils to hot or cold compresses. But I think one of the best ways is just along the back. You put some, you dilute it, you put some drops in your palm, just like we were going to do it in the pads of the dog, and we just kind of rub it along the top line, and that can work really well. Internally, that can be a slippery slope, and especially with cats, we do not recommend it with cats because they are much more sensitive to the terpenes and essential oils um, in essential oils. And so we want to be very careful with that. But they can be mixed with food. You don't need very much. I know for people that have like inflammatory bowel disease and have all these bowel spasms, they talk about putting a drop or two of peppermint oil in water and just drinking it. Because peppermint oil, in addition to being relaxing and calming, also is relaxes smooth muscle, which gets contracted when you have all these cramps and spasms when you have something like inflammatory bowel disease. You can even take it and rub it directly onto the gums. You can take a capsule and put it in the capsule and then close it and give it to them that way. So there's a lot of different ways to give the oils to your pet that would be effective, and which route you use may be more dependent upon your pet and what it's willing to accept, or what its sensitivities are, or what your sensitivities are too, because essential oils, because they're so very strong, some people can be sensitive to certain essential oils, as certain animals can as well. And we'll talk about some of the essential oils that we need to be a little bit more cautious with a few slides from now. So, and this is a dilution guide, and basically you're going to dilute it in a carrier oil, which would be like um, um, virgin olive oil, or virgin olive oil, or almond oil, or coconut oil, or medium chain triglycerides. Any oil will allow the drop of the essential oil to be diluted. And so, we want to start with the lowest possible dilution and start there and see if we can get the best results. Remember, dilutions are mainly for, putting on your palm and petting your dog as a way of administering it directly. We start low, and then, if after a couple of days we're not seeing what we want to see, we can make it a little more concentrated. So each animal is an individual, and some are more sensitive than others. So and then there's a free dilution chart down there. There's a website there. Now I wanted to say I got these slides from a veterinarian who and I've got a link to her website as well. And you can see right up here, essentialoilvet.com. So she has classes and a lot of good information on her website as well. And I want to credit her, I didn't ask her for permission to show these. I want to credit her for these because I don't want to be plagiarizing her work and take credit for what she did. So we'll talk about a couple of different products. Now we're looking at the doTERRA products. That's what we have available. There are other companies have other proprietary products that are blended with multiple essential oils to produce, a certain effect. Like the Digest Zen, as it sounds, is really to create a calming effect on your digestive system. It can reduce bloating and gas and indigestion. There's a number of different essential oils in there. I don't have a list of those readily available, but they are available. And you can combine it with Terrazyme, which is the proprietary digestive enzymes from doTERRA, but you can combine it with any good digestive enzyme formula for pets. And digestive enzymes and probiotics and herbs that are very friendly for the digestion, like we find in Digest Zen, can be a good solution for those dogs that we have and that we have out there who have, digestive issues. Balance is one that's more of a relaxing formula. They call it grounding and relaxing, and can promote mental tranquility, good for sleep. These are good for us as well. And Digest Zen, if you have digestive problems, Digest Zen, these are good for people. These were used in people to begin with, and then we've adapted their use in animals. It's a good idea, just because of the nature of these oils, to use this first before you're applying other oils. It's already been diluted, so you don't have to worry about that. And you want to give it a couple times a day topically, or maybe diffuse in a room as well. On guard, this is like an immune support. So especially, if your dog goes to doggy daycare, if it has a tendency to have a tendency to have upper respiratory issues, mushrooms are really good to help protect the respiratory system from getting those contagious diseases. But herbs can also be very useful. So using On Guard in combination with some medicinal mushrooms could be a good strategy to help reduce the upper respiratory diseases that your dog is bringing home from doggy daycare or from boarding or from the grooming shop or just from meeting other dogs in the dog park. Um, and so it can promote natural antioxidants. It can also be used as a household cleaner. And although it might be a little pricey in that regards, but it certainly would be good for, small areas. Lavender, who doesn't know about lavender? That very calming effect. It has a terpene in it called linalool. We find that same linalool that's in lavender as a terpene that is found in cannabis, which is one reason why CBD in cannabis can also be very relaxing if it has that terpene in it. It also can be used with dermatitis. It can help with itching, as can several other things. I know that's really a problem that we see in our pets, as far as their allergies and their itching and the problems they have with their skin and hair coat. Certainly, taking your dog to the vet for car rides, for peaceful sleep. Um, and it combines well when you're using it with omega-3 fatty acids for healthy skin and hair coat. And you can use it topically, you can diffuse it, or you can use it internally. And if you recall, we talked about balance, which has some lavender in it. It says apply this prior to other oils. So if you're thinking about using, if you want to, if one of them isn't good enough, isn't enough to chill your dog, and you try one and it's not enough, I would say try the two together, but apply the balance first before you apply the lavender. Okay, so looks a lot like my own Labrador Ollie. Copaiba. Now, copaiba is a plant, and it's a very, very powerful plant that it has a lot of applications. It has a strong anti-inflammatory effect. It can be used probably as good as many NSAIDs in terms of helping with arthritic pain or helping with pain in general. As you can see, it has benefits to the cardiovascular system, the immune system, the digestive system, the urinary system, respiratory, musculoskeletal, and nervous systems. Powerful antibiotic, protects the liver, has great antioxidant properties, and also can be relaxing as well. Beta caryophyllene is one of the terpenes that are found in copaiba, and it is also a terpene that we find activates the endocannabinoid system in the same way that CBD does. So you could use copaiba hand in hand with CBD. And I know there are some CBD products out there that some people have added copaiba to it for the additional pain relief and relax and digestive value and relaxing value as well. There's a lot of essential oils. I'm just showing you some of the ones I think are worthwhile knowing. Cedarwood will support the respiratory system and will encourage proper lymphatic flow, a healthy urinary tract, can be calming. But what I think a lot of people use it for, it's also an insect repellent. And it's when combined with rosemary, can promote healthy hair growth. It has calming effects as well. Many of these are calming. So if one of them's not working well enough, you could try another, or you could try several of them, stacked up on each other. Like I mentioned, it's a natural flea or tick repellent. And you can apply it to your dog's legs and neck and to yourself before going out, as a way of helping to reduce the ticks jumping on you, or the fleas, or the mosquitoes or biting flies as well. Frankincense is I like what she says down here. When in doubt, use frankincense. So frankincense also has very potent anti-inflammatory activities. The herb that we get the frankincense from is called boswellia. I use boswellia a lot in my formulas because it has such a strong anti-inflammatory and anti-pain function. But if you recall, the wise men from the East with the birth of the baby Jesus, they brought with them two herbs, frankincense and myrrh, because both those, I didn't cover myrrh today, I will later, but they were commonly used historically for postpartum women to help resolve the trauma of birth and help things to go back to normal. In this case, you can see she has a picture of a of a little mass or a pimple or something. Hard to say, almost looks like a little breast there. But you can see that after a month, in July of 28th of 2016 to August of 27th, you can see just by topical application of frankincense, whatever that was, it has gone away. So it can be good for tumors and masses, especially along with medicinal herbs. Has a lot of value. So it's a whole area of study itself. All of these different essential oils, but there's a few of them for you. And if you go to our website and go to the doTERRA page, and you click on that, it'll actually take you to the doTERRA website where there's a lot more information that can help guide you as far as selecting the right essential oil for your pet. And if you want some guidance, please reach out to me as well, and I'll do my best to guide you. Okay. So these are a few tips regarding essential oil safety. Topically, you want to use the proper dilution for your dog, starting low always and working your way up gradually. If you're using it aromatically, you want to use a safe diffusing protocol. And when she says open door here, you don't want to put the animal in a small room and diffuse all these strong essential oils when they can't leave the room, if it's annoying to them, or there isn't any kind of airflow to help dilute out. You don't need much at all of an essential oil for it to be effective. I mean, very, very minuscule little amounts. So you don't need much in that diffuser. And of course, internally, you want to use caution. You want to make sure the oil's safe for internal use. And I've got some slides coming up here showing you what are some oils to be careful with. You want to avoid mucous membranes like the ears, the eyes, or the nose. That's why we said the tip of the ear, as a way of applying it, and certainly not around the genitals or around the anus. And you don't want to apply them topically in the same location as topical medications. I think you want to leave, maybe an hour or two between those applications. And remember that xylitol, as great as it is as a low calorie sweetener, xylitol is toxic to dogs. And it can be in toothpaste, it can be in essential oil beadlets. So just make sure that whatever you're using does not contain xylitol. So sorry about this slide. I think when I was taking the screenshots with my camera, I think my hand moved a little bit. But these are some oils you want to avoid using topically or internally with dogs, which be birch, tea tree. We know about tea tree. You've been suggested to use that with parasites and insects, and with wintergreen. And some of these oils are what they call hot oils, and these are even hotter than ginger. Oregano, cassia is a type of cinnamon, clove, rosemary, and thyme. So, and these slides will be available to you so you can have these for your notes as well. Essential oil safety for cats, you want to use a very low dilution, but use the proper dilution and starting very low. Again, aromatically, you want to use a safe diffusing protocol, a water-based diffuser, make sure that door's open. I wouldn't recommend giving internally unless you're doing that under the advice or under the supervision of a veterinarian who is knowledgeable about the use of essential oils. And some vets, and this one in particular, some holistic practitioners believe that the animal needs to like the smell of the oil. And if it's attracted to the smell of the oil, then that tells you that this oil is good for the cat. And I don't really know. It's not very scientific. And a cat or a dog, because she also suggests with a dog, could have certain pre-existing issues with certain types of odors that don't have anything to do with the essential oil. But at the same time, we wouldn't want to put an essential oil on your around your dog or cat if it was something that made them feel uncomfortable. So it's not a bad thing to see if they are okay with that oil. Some will actually put several oils down, like they'll say, well, I can see what the problem is. I think I might use this oil or this oil or this oil. So they kind of lay all three of them down, on the ground, and they see which is the oil that the animal is attracted to. I think it's kind of cool. I don't really know how accurate it is or how effective it is, but um, this vet seemed to feel that it was something that she's recommending. So think about it, consider it. Let me know if you have if you've done it and you've tried it. Let me know what your observations and experiences with it. Again, avoid using the oil topically around sensitive mucous membranes. Don't apply the oils topically at the same time as other topical medications. And again, watch out for xylitol. Many of the same prohibitions for cats as for dogs, except not that internally. With seizure patients, there's certain oils that might increase their tendency to having seizures. So here we go. There's a list right there. If your animal has asthma, there are some essential oils that may not be the best to use for that. And here we have a list of those. Eucalyptus and peppermint, I believe she wasn't sure. I think it's an individual thing. Depends on how your animal actually will self-select that bottle with the eucalyptus or peppermint in it. And some of these essential oils, because they are so strong, can be photosensitizing, which means that the oils in direct sunlight or around ultraviolet light could cause reactions. And so here we see many of them are the citrus oils that you can see here, the bergamot and the grapefruit and the lemon and the lime and the tangerine. Whew, okay. So Janet Rourke is the name of the vet, and I would suggest to check out her essentialoilvet.com website, and where you can learn more and maybe sign up for some of her newsletters, or maybe if you'd like to have her work with your pet directly, I think she's a good vet to do that with. I believe she's in Austin, Texas, is where she's located. Anyway, let me have a little sip here. Got, got some great coffee beans in earlier this week, so I'm really loving them. All right. So let's turn the corner and let's talk about food and diet. And am I holding everybody's attention? This is good. Any questions at this point before I move on to a different topic? This would be a good time to ask some if you have any to ask, or if there's any questions in the chat, Haley, that refer to this. I know we did get an emailed question about essential oils, so we'll answer that when that comes up. Anything, Haley?
Yeah, I mean there is some questions about essential oils. Did you want to do those now
Yeah,
or
let's do it now. I mean,
okay.
unless anybody has a complaints, I mean, we just finished talking about it, so we'll do that, and then we'll get to do diets.
Okay, that sounds good. Oh, okay. Let
And
me
then, so
show you.
do you need me to stop sharing so you can share, or,
Um,
or can you share on top of this with your slide?
I let me see.
Okay, because
Let's
I
try
can
it
stop
out.
there. Okay, see what happens.
Oh, can you see this?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess
All right, that's
yours
okay.
takes.
Yeah, let me just stop this. We'll come back to this slide. Um, okay. Okay, there we go. All right.
All
Let's
right.
see.
So you're able to see this one. So this question is on essential oils here. You could see this one, right?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
And
perfect.
Yeah. So thank you
Oh,
for the information on treating seizures in senior dogs last month. It helped us tremendously and postpone the inevitable, giving us a few more weeks to enjoy our girl before her passing. My next question is, we're bringing in a 9-week-old foster puppy this weekend, and they want to get started feeding a gently cooked home diet, and want to give her the best nutrition start possible. What is your recommendation? Okay, so this first paragraph I'm going to be answering in the diet section, so I'm not going to go there. But also, can you touch on the use of essential oils with a small breed 9-week-old puppy for flea control? I used the tag from getfurlife.com for my senior dog, and here you can see the ingredients they're using. And my suggestion is that if the tag that contains these is working to reduce the burden of these fleas and other types of external parasites, great, because obviously those are many of the same essential oils that we were discussing. But if it's not enough, it might be that you need to get one of the essential oils I was suggesting, like the cedar wood, for instance, and maybe diluting that and rubbing that over the top of your dog or putting it on its legs, as they suggested, putting it on yourself as well. Insects can be fleas and insects can be very persistent. They can be very aggressive. Sometimes even the strongest of pharmaceutical repellents don't work that well. Um, but you know that fleas spend most of their time off of the dog. They spend most of their time in the environment. And so taking care of your household and also outside using non-toxic control methods like diatomaceous earth, for instance, is something that you can sprinkle it around in your flower beds because it's safe to use. And the diatomaceous earth, diatoms are these little tiny um, um, organisms that have silica skeletons. And when they die, the silica skeleton of the diatomaceous earth is so sharp that if you coat a flea with it, it actually cuts into the flea's hard exoskeleton and causes it to die. They have some forms of diatomaceous earth that are actually food grade. So you can also give them as food, and it can help with internal parasites as well. There also are these chemicals called insect growth inhibitors, and they don't affect mammals, they don't affect your dogs at all, but they affect the reproductive capacity of the fleas. And so by cleaning up your environment, by vacuuming along baseboards, by using diatomaceous earth, by using these insect growth inhibitors, you can reduce the burden of fleas that are in your environment because they spend most of their time not on your dog, although it might seem that way, but most of the time in the environment. And so they jump from the environment to your dog to get a meal, and then they go back into the environment and breed and have more babies. And so there's my answer. Is there another question then
yes.
for
There's
essential
one
oils?
more
Let's
here
see.
about essential oils.
Okay. Do I need to be concerned with essential oil diffusers or lingering scent on my hands from using hand soap and lotions and petting my cat? Well, I think that it's worthwhile being aware of that. I don't know if I would worry about it, but I would be aware of it because cats can be, as we've been mentioning, very sensitive to essential oils. And some cats may be more sensitive than others. So yes, to be aware of that is important. I think washing your hands after using things that are highly aromatic, is a good idea. Remember, if you're using the essential oil air diffusers, to leave a door open. But those are good. Those are good questions that I think are pertinent to our essential oils.
And there is one more here. I wasn't able to get it up on the screen for you super quick there, but if I could just read
Okay.
it out. Um,
Okay.
is the dosage different for puppies with the essential oils?
Well, puppies are small and they're delicate and just kind of forming, maybe more sensitive, not as hardened to all the stuff out there as adult dogs are. So, I would be, again, I wouldn't be concerned, but I would be aware. And with a puppy, I would definitely start with a very, very small amount. And I would probably use the least. invasive way of administering it, you know. So maybe just, a little bit of a diffuser with an open door, maybe diluting it in your hand and petting its back, depending what you're using it for, for a puppy. But that was a good question and good answer as well.
Yep, so that's
That
what we
was,
have for essential oils.
hmm And I'm getting a little peek of the chats here. Rita Hogan is a great herbalist. I've thought about having some guests here that we can talk about different topics. And Rita's one person. She's a close friend. I was thinking if she'd be a great person to have here. Along with, I'd like to get an animal communicator or two to come visit with us, a massage therapist. I think there's a lot of people that provide care for pets that can also help us learn better how to help our pets. Okay, so let me get back to the slides. Doing okay here, everybody? Cool with it? Let's see. Got this going. Yeah. Let's put that down here. Nope. Okay, that didn't work. Oh, I am not happy with this. There we go. But you're not seeing it?
No.
Okay. All right. So bear with me. Sorry, guys. I don't know why it's doing this. It's never done this before. But okay, that's not right either. Okay, now this is it. Is that it? Okay, there we go. Let's try this again. Okay, and there, I think I got it to work. Yeah? Everybody see it?
Yep.
Good. Okay. Alrighty. Well, I think probably the most important thing that we all think about with our pets is what to feed them, and if they don't have a good appetite, it concerns us, if they react to the food with soft stools or diarrhea or vomiting, it concerns us. But they have to eat every single day. And so I want to talk about the different choices that we have. I've done this before, but I think it's good to do it again. And I want to say that, although I think there are reasons not to feed certain foods, I don't think that people are bad for feeding them. I mean, I've seen some people, pet food consultants almost insulting people or making fun of them because they're feeding kibble or dry food. And I think into every life, a little junk must fall. And there are some dogs who have had nothing but kibble their whole lives, nothing else, no supplements, no nothing, and they live really long and well. So I can't say the kibble is something you should never ever feed. I'm feeding Ollie some kibble right now. Ollie has gotten heavier. It's my fault. I've been spoiling him too much, and he's having trouble getting up. He was they found him at 4 months of age with bad hips, and they're just getting worse with age. And as his weight has gotten heavier, so he's even less able to get up. So what I'm doing now is portion control to get his weight down. I'm using commercially available diets because I know exactly how many calories they are, and I can compute how many calories I need to feed him on a daily basis to get him to lose weight. And I can achieve that by using diets for which, all the diets now, all the pet diets now tell you how many calories are in there, which makes it a lot easier for us to figure out how much to feed or really how much not to feed. So I think that, kibble and dry food, I wouldn't want to have it be fed as the exclusive diet just based on the fact that it's ultra processed, it's pro-inflammatory, it has a high carbohydrate content, all the things we know that can lead to many of the chronic diseases that we see. But a little kibble, you guys don't have time to make food. You may be making food for your pets, and something's going on in your life that you don't have the time to make the homemade food. Sometimes kibble's an easy solution. But it is ultra processed, and I don't think that it should be fed very often. But it is something that you can fall back on when times get stressful, Canned food is also, I think it's a little better than kibble. because one of the things about kibble is that it is mostly carbohydrates. And when you manufacture the kibble at high temperatures and pressures, it changes the molecular structure of the kibble to make it pro-inflammatory and to make it what we call a glycotoxin. It's kind of a conversion of the carbohydrates and sugars that are in the food into something that is toxic, and can actually promote diabetes and things like that. Canned food, you don't have to use kibble. You need carbohydrates. You need the carbohydrates to form those little nuggets. That's kibble. But you don't. But in a canned food, you don't need to form anything because it's all loose like a pate in there. So you can get canned foods that don't have any carbohydrates at all. You can get them that are mainly protein and mainly fats. But in order to manufacture canned foods, they have to be put into those cans and heated under high temperatures and pressures, which also do some conversion, molecular conversion of the food. Also, the lining of the cans contains BPA or contains something like BPA, which is an endocrine disruptor. BPA used to be used as a substitute for estrogens way early on before we had better quality estrogens in human medicine. And a lot like BPA is a lot like DES. But what we find as an endocrine disruptor, it's been proven to be the cause of hyperthyroid disease in cats. When I've been feeding my cats for almost forever, either quail for the prey diet or raw foods. But we had a big flood here in 2013, and it knocked out all the power for a couple of weeks, and all of our raw food was destroyed. So I started feeding them canned food, and one of my cats developed hyperthyroid disease because of that. And out of three cats, only one did. And they say that 30% of cats that eat canned food will develop hyperthyroidism. I saw that actually proved here in my home. So the best foods to feed are, and for us as well, are the foods that are gently cooked or, raw as much as possible. Now, most humans don't eat raw meat as a food unless you're talking about sushi, or carpaccio, that sort of thing. But gently cooking at kitchen temperatures doesn't change the molecular structure of the food. Sometimes cooking the food actually makes it more bioavailable. In Chinese medicine, they're concerned about feeding too much raw food because the raw food, they say, damages the digestive system. Too much cold, they say, damages the digestive system. You need the heat, the heat of digestion to help digest the food, and cold food destroys that. At the same time, there's very strong advocates for feeding nothing but raw, meaty bones. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways and different approaches to feeding raw. I think the best way to feed raw is feeding the raw protein and the raw vegetables and blending them in a nutrient profile that's appropriate for your pet. Now, what's a nutrient profile? A nutrient profile is basically the relationship between the carbohydrates and the protein and the fats in the diet. And under carbohydrates, we also can include fiber. And we know that when you have excessively high carbohydrates in your nutrient profile, it tends to create inflammation. We know that for certain diseases like epilepsy and like cancer, that we want to have a slightly higher amount of protein, but moderate, not super high, and we want to have higher fats. There's certain fats like medium chain triglycerides, which can be derived from coconut oil, that actually alter the metabolism of the body to be more of a fat metabolism. And cancer can't cancer needs carbohydrates to grow. So that's the other thing about feeding lower carbohydrate diets. I don't think, and some people say carbohydrate diets because of the pro-inflammatory effect may even be a cause or one risk factor for cancer. So the best food are fresh, raw, or gently cooked diets, and this is something that you can purchase. We have pet shops now that have walls of freezers that have these frozen for you. And whether they're the raw or whether they've been gently cooked in loaves, they still keep them frozen because that preserves them the best. We also have companies now online that are offering to ship diets to you directly to your door. And those are some of the choices that we have available as our partners. We're currently feeding our cats one of our diets, goodness gracious, but we're also going to the pet shop and getting another diet that they like, the primal pork, which is a flavor they particularly enjoy. So, I mean, everything doesn't have to be all, only one thing. You can certainly blend in and compromise and find sources from a number of different places. I think it's nice to have, some of these frozen diets, in your freezer, available to be thawed out to use when you might need them. Um, Certainly a better choice than reaching for that kibble if life gets stressful and time gets short. Um, but I also wanted to say that I don't think that we have to feed all fresh raw all the time. If you can, that's fine. But I think for many people, we need to find a compromise. And in addition to buying these diets, you can also make them yourself. And they're not that hard to make, especially if it's raw, you're not cooking them. So that's one less step. I taught my clients in my practice in Boulder how to do homemade diets. Almost everyone that came in. My initial appointment for my holistic consulting was an hour long in the exam room. For cancer, it would be an hour and a half. And in that hour, I had a worksheet that I used in which I helped them to figure out how they could prepare a freshly made homemade diet for their pets, whether it was raw or whether it was cooked or a little bit of each. So I'm not going to do that tonight. But I want to offer that to you, and I'd like to get some feedback that next month, um, which we're going to be talking about cancer next month, because May is National Pet Cancer Awareness Month. So we're going to be doing cancer, but I'm also going to be doing homemade diets if people are interested in that. And I can even talk about how to modify that diet for your cancer patient. So home prepared meals are great. They're not that hard, but we have to make sure they're balanced by adding extra calcium, the right kinds of fats and oils, the right blend between protein and carbohydrates and fats and fiber, and so, you need to have like a big program put together for your pet. And then, so you can make some home prepared meals when you have the time. You can have some frozen meals in the freezer from these different companies that do such a good job. And, you can have some canned and kibble as well for when life gets stressful and you just need to give Fido some food. And what's one or two meals really out of their whole lives when you're feeding the rest of the time, you're feeding them good stuff. Now, the last diet is a controversial one. And but I think it's really the best compromise there is. And I call it the table scraps diet. And many people eat healthy food themselves, and you might have a really good quality of a whole grain that's been well cooked. You've got some protein sources that are high quality, whether it's meat-based or vegetarian-based. Mushrooms are a great source of protein. If you want to feed your animal in a vegetarian way, which I don't recommend, but I know people want to do that, and so we want to make sure they do it right. So if you eat healthy and we can figure out what the nutrient profile is that is best for your pet's health and how much we need to feed in order to make sure we maintain a healthy weight, you can actually take portions from the food you're preparing under the guidance of a veterinarian, under my guidance, um, and you can share that with them. So, they can get a little bit of home prepared meal, maybe a little bit of the frozen stuff. You can add some of the stuff from your own table. We can add some supplements to make sure they're getting enough calcium, they're getting good fatty acids and antioxidants, maybe probiotics and digestive enzymes. And this is really how we build a healthy diet. It's not always the same thing. We need to be flexible. Life demands flexibility. So this is my spiel. This is my thing, So I say, take one from column A, two from column B, and find the right blend that matches your lifestyle, matches your budget, matches your pet's needs, and let's do that. And let's not have it be disruptive to our lives, but instead something that enhances and embellishes the value of our lives because of the care we're giving to our pets. Okay, so let's see what the next slide has to bring us. Okay, So, and this is kind of the worksheet, and I do have a worksheet that we'll share, and I'll show this slide next month as well if it turns out that this is what people would like me to talk about. And the first thing is we want to know, based on your pet's age, medical condition, size, all the above, weight, what the appropriate nutrient profile is for your pet. Does it need, 30% carbohydrates and 30% protein and maybe 30%, vegetables? And then we have a certain formula for how we add the fats to it. Or does it need no carbohydrates at all? Cats, for instance, are obligate carnivores. They're not the same as dogs. So with cats, we feed them very little carbohydrates. Cats that get a lot of carbohydrates turn into type 2 diabetics. And I've been able to treat a number of type 2 diabetic cats just by changing their diet without using insulin. Because once you get them off the carbs, get them on the fats, get them on the protein, their pancreas stops. They get better. They can improve. So then we want to know about the size of your animal. We do a body composition scoring where we don't just look at the weight, but we look at how the flesh hangs on the bones. Is there a lot of fat? Is it very thin? Is it scrawny? And then from that, we determine, I have a formula I use to determine how many calories we need to feed your pet so that it reaches its ideal weight. If it's not at its ideal weight, we want to reduce its weight or we want to have it gain its weight to be what its ideal weight is. And I'll describe, I've got some charts and diagrams that show how we can figure this out. And then, what food ingredients are we going to be using for your critter? Is it allergic to anything? Are there some types of foods it doesn't like? Like our cats like the pork. They don't really like the beef. It's just, what are the personal preferences? What about allergies or sensitivities to different ingredients? We need to be aware of that. If your animal does have allergies or sensitivities to ingredients, we should probably do a test to find out what's it sensitive to so we avoid those ingredients, so we don't find ourselves making things worse because it's eating food that it's sensitive to. Once we have all that together, we've sourced our ingredients and know how much we're giving for your pet. Then we blend them all together, kind of into a canned food consistency, mainly so the animal won't get to pick out the big pieces or just pick out what it wants. Now, there are those that promote home feeding that say that it's also good to create a food bowl or a food mat that is kind of interesting to your, not just all blended to canned food consistency, but they can eat this one separately and then eat that one separately. And that's a fine way to do it as well. There's a lot of ways to feed your animal. And we are concerned about something called environmental enrichment, or the fact that many pets are left home alone all day and they get bored. And so we try to find ways to enrich their environment. And one way to enrich their environment is by spreading their food out, maybe hiding it around the house after you leave. So they'll still get the same meal, but they've got to find it. There are some feeding mats that actually are like a maze, and your dog has to go down and really work to get things out. And dogs like working to get food. It's very environmentally enrichment. It keeps their minds sharp and alert and lets them not do destructive things or barking, in your household while you're at work. And this is a lot of work, but you can batch prepare and freeze it into daily serving portions. So just like the food that you might be buying from one of these companies, you can do it yourself. And although it's, buying good quality food is still expensive, it's still going to be less than having another company do it for you that also has to have a capital investment on keeping all their stuff frozen at their shipping warehouse and shipping it to you. It's still going to be less than what you're purchasing. So, there's a lot of choices, and I want to school you on each of the choices that you feel are most appropriate for you to use in your life with your pet. Okay. I'm kind of passionate about this stuff. Um, the second part of the worksheet is that it's important that we add additional calcium. In the wild, when the dog eats the flesh, the meat, which is high in phosphorus, it also eats the bones. So using things like raw bones, There's certain raw bones that you can feed your dog that are safe to feed, unless you've got a tiny little dog. Maybe Bruce Wayne's too small, but little raw chicken wings. As long as they're raw, they're soft and they don't splinter. Chicken necks are particularly good for small dogs. Turkey necks would have to be for a much larger dog. We wouldn't want to use turkey drumsticks or chicken drumsticks, but also the sacrum, the back of the chicken, is also a very good soft bone that's easy to chew. So this gives them calcium, which helps to balance the high phosphorus in the meat that you're feeding, but it also exercises their jaw. It also helps to keep their teeth clean. So I think bones can be good. You just have to, you need a dog who's smart about, some are stupid. You know, they're just going to inhale it and it's going to get stuck. So you need to, dogs need to learn how to chew bones. They don't know it intuitively, especially if they've never seen one before. So think about that. But there's powdered bone meal. Some people use eggs, eat a lot of eggs. You can keep your eggshells and dry them in the oven and grind them up. And then I've got a formula for how many milligrams of calcium per teaspoon of powdered eggshell, which is just calcium carbonate and has a little bit of an eggshell membrane on the inside of it. We want to add healthy fats. Healthy dogs we all need a lot of fats. We've gotten too used to thinking fats are bad because of the obesity epidemic that we're experiencing. But fats are actually good, and we need fats to reduce inflammation, to kind of to lubricate the machinery of the body. And I like flaxseed meal a lot. Flaxseed meal is inexpensive, it's tasty, it's readily available. Keep it in the refrigerator because flaxseed will go rancid relatively quickly. It has omega-3s in it, it has omega-6s in it, but it also has really good fiber, both soluble and insoluble fiber, and it has something called plant lignans in it. And plant lignans are these fiber-like molecules in the flaxseed that actually bind up toxic estrogens and bind up toxins. And so using flaxseed meal provides the oils, it provides the fiber, but it also provides a detoxification. And so all of my animals get flaxseed meal. I take it myself in my smoothies. EPA and DHA are the two marine fatty acids, and you can get them from fish oil like salmon oil or cod liver oil, or krill meal. And a lot of my real mushroom products now, we're using krill meal blended with the mushroom powder because it's so tasty, but because it also has such a nutritional value with the marine lipids that are in it, with the phospholipids that are in it, with the choline, and with the antioxidants from the algae astaxanthin. So we want to give several different types of oils, not just one oil. Flaxseed meal has that flax oil in it, EPA and DHA from fish oil or krill meal, and then coconut oil or medium chain triglycerides. They're optional, but I think they can really round out all the oils. And certainly if your animal has epilepsy or behavior problems or has issues with digestive problems, the medium chain triglycerides can be very helpful in terms of helping with those problems as well. And just using coconut oil alone is fine. There's more refined forms of coconut oil that actually have, higher amounts of the medium chain triglycerides if you're dealing with epilepsy or behavior problems or cancer. But coconut oil will do in a pinch. And I can explain to you more if you have specific questions about that. So we get all that together, we've sourced the material, we've put it together according to the nutrient profile, and added all these supplements to make it complete and balanced, or such as it is. And then we want to start feeding it. But you don't want to feed it all at once. You want to gradually transition your pet, especially if they've been on kibble their whole lives. Their digestive system may not be as adaptable as we'd like it to be. So we want to make a gradual transition because we don't want to have big messes on the carpet. And it'll work just a whole lot better. And you'll probably be fairly reluctant to keep feeding it if it causes diarrhea at the very beginning. So start gradually make the transition over a week or so. You probably already know if your dog has a sensitive digestion, and if it does, then take even longer, start with even smaller amounts. Okay, and let's see. All right, so I guess that's basically the home prepared food um, approach. And for the question that the woman was asking about the um, the 9 week old puppy just coming into the household, wanting to get it started, on a good diet. My suggestion with puppies and kittens, especially just coming into the household, is to start them with fresh food as much as you can, because the first thing you feed an animal is what they kind of imprint upon. That's one reason why cats can be so picky, because often, too commonly, we start cats out with kibble, and then they get kind of addicted to the kibble. And then when you start to offer them some real food, like a sardine or something, they kind of go, "What the heck is that?" So, so the best food, for a puppy, because you're going to be getting them started with vaccinations. So you want their immune system to respond to a healthy diet. You want their microbiome to respond to a healthy diet. The microbiome is really sensitive to the food that you feed. And the microbiome is just being developed in the puppy and kitten. And the immune system is just being developed in the puppy and kitten. So to me, that's the most important time in their life, to give them things like fresh food and like mushrooms that will help to improve the growth and development of the microbiome and the growth and development of the immune system, and will make them able to process the vaccines in a safer, more effective way, so that they last longer, so you won't have to keep revaccinating year after year. You can do vaccine titers and they'll have good protection. And that's what my suggestion would be for your puppy. And congratulations, having a new puppy entering the household. So some of the new additions that I wanted to talk about, because when I'm talking about starting a puppy or kitten on something new, these new mushroom extracts that we've just launched with the Krill Pet, I think are perfect for starting your puppy or your kitten on, as are our daily wellness supplements. A daily dog, which has and functional feline, they both have live probiotics in them. They've got detoxicants. They've got 8 different mushrooms. They've got krill meal. So I think between the mushroom extracts with Krill Pet, like the Pet Defenders or the Lion's Mane for puppies or kittens, combining those, if you really want to go whole hog, I think the best way would really be combine the daily dog with the Pet Defenders, or with the Lion's Mane. Lion's Mane's been known for historically to help improve digestive function, as well as help with neurologic function and cognition. We have healthy diets that can be delivered to your door. The Evermore, the Chi Dog and Chi Cat. Evermore is gently cooked and has a number of different flavors to it. Chi Dog and Chi Cat are raw and gently cooked. Raised Right is gently cooked and goodness gracious. So more and more diets are doing the gently cooked approach, because they have better shelf life, because they don't run the potential of having foodborne pathogens in them, and they work just as well in terms of creating health. I don't think the food has to be raw in order for it to be healthy. So, and then as we mentioned, home prepared meals. I actually, when I worked for RX Vitamins, I created a whole number of supplements for veterinarians to dispense to their clients for preparing homemade foods. And so we have, from RX Vitamins, we have nutritional support for dogs and cats, which is basically has a lot of micronutrients in it. We have kelp powder and nutritional yeast, and a bunch of different herbs. So it has a bunch of micronutrients that you would find from plants in there. I originally designed it to be used for people who are just feeding kibble, as a way of introducing more micronutrients, more antioxidants, more healthy things in it than before. And the canine minerals and feline minerals contain a source of calcium. The feline minerals also have taurine. The Ultra EFA is a fish oil that comes from Norway, that's made from sardines and mackerel. Flaxseed meal, we don't carry on the Well Pet dispensary, but is available everywhere. And then we talk about different nutrient profiles. I'm getting carried away with all the talking. I apologize if it's too much, but the impression I've been getting from these meetings is that this is what you guys want. You want me to share with you all of this great information. So here we are. We're also offering bundles now. So if you wanted to start your puppy or kitten off with the functional with the daily dog or functional feline and with the pet defenders or the lion's mane or the turkey tail, you can combine those two and save some money doing it that way. Um, and yeah, these are our fresh food lines. I've been mentioning them to you. Go up to our website, read more about them. Go to the website, see how they match up for your dog as well. This is just what they look like here. And then finally, we get to the Q&A part. So I hope this has been good for everybody. And if you like it, next time I'll keep doing this. I'll be doing quite a bit. I'm gonna stop my share now and see you guys all face to face. And so what's next, Haley?
Yeah, I will share this with you here. Okay, can you see this?
I can. Hmm.
Perfect. All right, did you want me to read it or did you want to read it off?
Oh, I'll read it. It helps me to remember what I'm saying. I have a 6-year-old Abyssinian who has chronic bronchitis. He's on a fluticasone inhaler. That's what people with asthma do. It's a bronchodilator. Raw fed, raw fed through fetching foods. I guess that's a brand. Just added krill oil twice a day. That's good. Is there any other supplement you would recommend for the bronchitis? I ordered curcumin from Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones is awesome. I love that guy. Um, and haven't given, well, I think the curcumin would be good, but what I would recommend for your Abyssinian is actually a mushroom. And the mushroom is called cordyceps mushroom. It's one of the mushrooms that is tasty. There's three mushrooms that are pretty tasty for cats, and cordyceps and tremella and lion's mane. We don't have cordyceps in a pet labeled product. We sell the cordyceps as a bulk pouch. It's human labeled. We haven't made it into a pet product yet. So you're going to have to purchase, like a 45-gram um, um, bag, but it sounds like your cat is used to getting raw foods and a lot of other things. And the cordyceps is good for bronchitis. It's good for asthma. It supports the lung, and I think that would be good. But I think what you're doing is really good already. So that's my answer to that question. How do
Excellent.
you know when your dog is having a reaction to mushrooms? And this person's been giving quarter teaspoon twice daily of the turkey tail mushrooms, and my dog is having a lot of mucus in her stools. Which mushrooms are easy on the digestive tract? Okay, so I handle a lot of customer support questions from pet parents for real mushrooms. And it is not uncommon. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people using the mushrooms, and we get maybe two or three complaints that it gave their dog diarrhea or soft stools or it made it vomit. And I think that this is a very individual reaction of the dog to that mushroom. So there's mucus in the stools. Mucus in stools is a sign that there's some irritation in the colon, and the colon is producing mucus, which then coats the stools. At least the stool hasn't, the stool consistency hasn't changed. I take it that they're still fairly normal. So, and the turkey tail is supposed to be pretty good for the digestive system. If you wanted to try a different one, you could try the lion's mane. Lion's mane, as I mentioned earlier, historically was used for digestive function. And you could try using the lion's mane and the krill meal, which is also going to supply a lot of good ingredients such as the fish oil and the antioxidants and the choline, all of those things. But I would definitely start very low. I mean, a quarter teaspoon is not a lot of mushrooms, but start low and work your way up. As long the stool's not getting soft, and I don't know how long that's been going on, but it might be that you're okay, and that if you continue longer with your turkey tail at that dosage, that the dog may better adapted to it as it gets more used to it, and you will start to see the mucus disappearing and the stools just being normal. But if you wanted to try a different mushroom, I would go try the lion's mane. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Those two we already answered, sorry.
No problem. This no, this is good like this too, Haley. It makes it easier for me than you just reading them.
Awesome.
I currently make food for my two dogs. However, I will often use some kibble to help extend the homemade meal so that I'm not making food every week. Is this a bad practice to feed some kibble at all? So, based on what you've heard me say, no, it's not. If this is something that works better for your budget, works better for your time management, I don't think that you're really doing harm to your dogs as long as the addition of kibble doesn't upset their digestive system, doesn't create over time issues with the skin or things that are obvious. I think this is a good compromise. This is what I'm suggesting that we consider doing, that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, you know? This is the real world we're in. So, no, I think it's good. Good question.
Next one here.
Mhm. So any good suggestions on mushrooms or mushroom combos that I can give my dog to help with shrinking um, hematomas or small tumors in the ear as a result of a bad bacterial ear infection? Vets are suggesting an ear ablation. Would like rather try other options. So probably they're not tumors as in cancer. They're probably more like cysts, or polyps. And the hematomas, which happens when your dog shakes its head or scratches at it, and the ear flap hits something and breaks a blood vessel. And so the hematoma is this little blood blister, and sometimes not such a little blood blister. It could be a big blood blister that's between the skin and the cartilage in the ear flap. And they really don't go away on their own. They really need to be drained. If you don't drain them, they'll wind up creating a clot, which then will contract and will cause um, like a cauliflower ear. That's what boxers get. They get punched to the ear, which then gives them a hematoma, and then they don't treat it, and it gets all cauliflowered up. So so in terms of mushrooms for that, I don't really have a specific mushroom for this. And I have found that oftentimes these chronic ear infections are the result of food allergies. And we found that if we could determine which ingredients the animal's allergic to, that oftentimes and we get the ears thoroughly clean because obviously that stuff doesn't go away on its own. That we can actually cure the the ear problems, and then they don't need that surgery. Your vet feels that things are so diseased in there, and they're not responding to the strong pharmaceuticals, the steroids, and the antibiotics. Um, so um, so I would suggest that you have the tumor, the hematoma drained. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. They can take what's called a little teat cannula. It's used in dairy cattle to go up the nipple of a cow to help keep it open. And they make a little stab incision. Then they put this drain inside that blood blister and they suture it into it. And then it drips out. Usually we bandage the ear and the blood drips out, and then that allows it to heal because it can't heal as long as there's blood in there. A more aggressive way of doing it that works better is we actually make a big cut in that skin of the ear, and then we kind of do mattress sutures to tack it back down again. Looks pretty ugly, but it works pretty well, and they heal pretty quickly from it. Have to kind of bandage them up and all. But I would look to the food allergy thing, um, and I would talk with your vet, about draining that hematoma. Some vets can be pretty hard-headed about what they want to do and all. And I'm not saying the vet's right or wrong. Walk a mile in your shoes. I don't know what the real situation is. But I would look to food allergies and see if that's a way that you can clear up those ears and do something with getting the hematomas to drain. There is a Chinese herb that I sell on my website called Yunnan Baiyao. And Yunnan Baiyao is used to stop bleeding, and it can help to resolve hemorrhage. But I've never, and I've tried it. I've tried it and I've tried it, and it never really works well enough unless you combine it with the drainage. So sorry, I don't have great solutions for you. And an ear ablation, as aggressive as it is, could wind up being curative, especially if you wind up finding out that it's a food allergy, and you can get the food allergy corrected, and then you can um, have a healthy ear. Maybe there's so much tissue damage that an ear ablation is the only thing that's left. Anyway, next question. Well, your thoughts regarding treating the prolific tick problem this year. Prior years, shampoo spray worked this year, not so much. Well, I think, looking at the essential oils is one approach, but many of these natural shampoos and sprays also have them on it. Ticks, if you can find them all and remove them before they've attached for 24 hours, are less likely to have transmitted any kind of tick-borne infection they might have, like Lyme's disease or Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And what I'm going to say is something that there are some who say that I'm copping out or whatever, but let's face it, tick-borne infections can be really, really serious. I mean, they can be life-threatening, life-altering for sure. Lyme's disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and whatnot. And so maybe it's worthwhile looking at using a conventional tick repellent that is more safe than an older one that's a more of a legacy product than these newer ones that are these really amped up drugs. So I've used for years a spot on drop, and it's a topical drop for ticks, lasts about a month, and it's called Frontline. And I use that. Last year we had really bad ticks here in Colorado. This year not so bad because it's so dry. But I used that on Ollie just for 2 months, just for the tick season. And I've dispensed a lot of it when I was in practice for 20 years because it worked so well, and never had any kind of fallout from it, like we're hearing with some of these new modern um, um, products like Bravecto and I don't even know how to pronounce all of them. So I think they're too strong, quite frankly. And the pharmaceutical industry has to keep creating new drugs so that they can have, increase the price and everything else, and as their patents expire on the old drugs. So I would look to Frontline and just get the simple, old-fashioned, just the Frontline alone without anything else in it. And it's yes, there is some risk with that, but there's also a heck of a lot more risk, I think, with getting Lyme's, with your dog having Lyme's disease or a tick-borne infection. So that's my approach. I'm a pragmatist, I'm not an activist. I don't believe rigidly in things. I think things change and we need to adapt to change in the way that best suits our lives. Okay, next question. I know you cannot recommend other vendors' products. Oh, yes, I can. But can you advise on what specific ingredients to avoid, specifically the teeth cleaning additives or powders? Well, I'll tell you that what we're using right now for our animals to control their dental disease is something called TEEF, TEEF. And it was created by this microbiologist. And basically, what it is, it's a prebiotic for the microbiome in your mouth. And we have two Maine Coon cats, and Maine Coons have genetic tendencies to gingivitis. So even as a little kitten, Spencer, he had dragon breath. And since we've been using this, his dragon breath has gone away. That red line of gingivitis has reduced markedly. We try to brush his teeth, but that's kind of the impossible dream. Um, but I would recommend looking at that. And I think there are some problems out there with these teeth cleaning additives and powders. There's something called Proden, which is a powdered seaweed, kelp powder, basically. And I use a lot of kelp powder in my products. And the kelp powder will break up the biofilm that develops on the teeth that then develops into periodontal disease. So if you use the teeth in combination with kelp powder, or use the Proden if you want, that's a commercial product made by Swedencare. I think that combination alone is good. If you can brush your animal's teeth, that's great. If you can't, you can even rub, like take like a little gauze pad or even just your finger and moisten it and put some baking soda on it and just rub it along the gums like that. And that can be very helpful as well. A dog chewing bones, like I was discussing before, can also be very helpful. And you know, some animals have a tendency, in spite of everything we do, to develop more dental disease. And for those, bringing them in and getting their teeth cleaned more frequently, even though we're using anesthesia, is a good way to help prevent more serious dental disease happening, which would then involve longer sessions of anesthesia and more of a surgical extractions and lapping of the gums and everything else. So, you know, sometimes I think a little bit of conventional work done appropriately and done proactively can save you a lot of more serious and more involved and more and less safe conventional work later on. Next question.
All right, so this is the last one I do have. Are you able to see this bottom one or?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, yep, the CBD one.
Can CBD with 1% THC be applied topically? Okay, so first of all, CBD with 1% THC is not a legal hemp product. It's a dispensary product. And the THC, that much THC is better, actually, stronger and more effective than the amount of THC in a hemp product. That's one reason why my hemp products, my CBD products, don't contain THC because I don't think it does anything there. And and the and even that small amount of THC that's in a hemp product can cause animals or humans to test positive on drug tests. And for animals that are very sensitive, it can still cause a reaction. So yes, the CBD with 1% THC can be applied topically, but if your dog can lick it, then it's going to potentially be getting more THC than you might want it to in terms of the effect that THC has on dogs. Because THC affects dogs differently than any other animal on this planet. For some reason, dogs have a large number of these receptors in their cerebellum of their brain for THC. Before they had analytical laboratories that could analyze for THC in smuggled shipments of marijuana, they would feed the marijuana to a dog. And the dog, and if the dog had a specific reaction to the cannabis with THC in it, they had enough evidence that they could convict in court, that they could convict the smugglers in court. Dogs don't like getting high. They're so sensitive to the THC that when they get some THC in them, they get this kind of static ataxia. They can start drooling, they can fall over. Some dogs are so sensitive, or if they get too high a dosage, we've even had a few that that have died as a result of because they had other health problems as well, and they got too much THC in them and caused them to die. So yes, it can be used, but don't let the dog lick it unless you want to see your dog have act funny. There you
Yep,
go.
yep, that's all we have.
Well, it was good, and we kept almost everybody for that whole hour and a half. Wow, good. Well, I hope this was good for y'all, and look forward to seeing you next month. Please reach out to us. Let us know how we can do this better. What topics are you want you'd like us to hear from us, and my goal is each month to make it better than the last. So we'll see how that works.